And we're live. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the shit show. Welcome to Horny Gnome Booze Cruise, episode 10. We're going to smash some beers tonight. We're going to talk about my new equipment that you're seeing and everything that's going on. We're talking some 90s stuff. I was just a guest on my boys over at Just Be a Dad podcast. I was on their podcast earlier tonight. And we were talking about the 90s stuff, so it kind of got me nostalgic. I got my Sublime shirt on. We're going to talk some 90s stuff. We're going to talk about what I've done the last couple of weeks, in last, and we're going to go over some great beers. So that's kind of my plan for right now. If you're just hopping in here, welcome, welcome, welcome. And we're going to get right into it. So I want to start with my first beer. My first beer that I'm going to try is Lake Loop Pale Ale. It's from Peachtree Brewing Company. Peachtree is out of Coralville, Iowa. This is used in Sabro and Sultana hops. Supposed to have a tropical pineapple. Let's crack it open and check her out. If you're watching me over on TikTok, what's going on? How's everybody's night going over there? You're watching me very well. Top of the comments, say what's up, talk to me. Just kind of a weird start to the show, so I'm a little bit later than normal. Normally we start at 9:30, but this week I was a guest on another podcast, so I can kick it back half an hour. So as long as everybody can hear me good, and then I'm calling. So I just poured this out for whatever reason. I've had a couple of these already. The carbonation is ridiculous. Like you guys can see. It's just I only poured out. 3/4 of a can. It just is bubbling like crazy. Carbonation is absolutely ludicrous on these beers. I don't know what it is, but it doesn't affect the taste necessarily. It's just when you pour it out, it just bubbles, bubbles, bubbles. Crazy. What's going on? How are you? So here we go. This is a great one. This is from Peachtree. So I had tried um another Peachtree joint that I really liked. It was an orange, like OG orange. It was really, really good. I really enjoyed that one, so I wanted to try this. What brand? What are you asking? What brand on top of equipment? Or are you talking the beer? What are we talking? Here you go. Ooh, I feel like lots of it's pale ale. Lots of tropical flavor in it. So it's almost like a haze. As far as flavor profile is concerned, really smooth. Got a little bit of snap at the end that I really enjoy. This is really, really good. I'm trying to give you guys an ABV on this one. I'm guessing under 6%, right in there. So I don't see it on here. I'm not. It's not necessarily New England style either. Like it has a haze to it, but I don't think that's necessarily intentional. I think it comes along with the hops that they use. So they use Sabro and Sultana hops, and depending on if they dry hop it later on or something like that, that's going to bring that heat. So that's what I'm getting at there. So this is actually really delicious. Mm. Got TJ hopping in here. Beer, absolutely. I'm actually going to do. I don't think I'll do it on this show. Maybe it depends on how wild the show gets. But I got some fresh bourbon whiskey from Cypress Beers. Shout out Cypress Beers. I did a really cool they did a personalized walkthrough with us. I'm friends with one of the owners and stuff, and I told them, hey, I'm going to be in the Omaha area and stuff like that. I'd like to check some stuff out. But I'll be going through Lincoln. Can I stop in and check out the distillery? He's like, yeah, absolutely. They call us up like the head distiller and everything. And I stopped over. It was like right in the middle of their workday, and the head distiller came out and gave us this great little walkthrough The whole place is up on TikTok. If you guys want to go check that out, showed us the whole bar area. There's a bar connected to it called Boombox. Um, internet reception sucks. For you or for me? 'Cause mine is great. You guys have to deal with it. Ooh. But yeah. So we did a nice like personalized walkthrough. He like walked us through the whole process. It was really cool. He talked about everything, about what all the different machines do, it coming in from grain, getting broke down and everything. The audio, I had no problems with it. Not even, I had no problems with it. Yeah, really weird. All right, so kind of keep an eye on it for me. Cutting out. Why am I cutting out? It doesn't show I'm cutting out on the board at all. Sorry, guys, if you're watching this. I don't know why. Everything on the internet seems to be working just fine. I don't know. Should be just had all that. I'm the one that fixed it. Weird. I don't know. I have it all hardwired in and everything like that. It's cut out. It's really weird because it wasn't doing the last one. It just got done. That's weird. Well, we'll keep going for it. If you're ever in New England, I tried a beer by Gagan's Brewery. Oh, that's cool. Weather, yeah, it could be. It's super, super windy out right now. It definitely could be. So we're just gonna kind of trudge along, and if it's choppy, it's choppy. It all seems like it's working on my side. It's not cutting out in my headphones, so it's probably the internet connection. I can only do so because I just spent all day fixing forward. So I don't know. It is what it is. We'll keep going. Speaking of Dage and Miranda, they're hopping in here, saying what's up, and telling me my audio shit. Um, they are Dage is part of the American Rebel Tour. I was wearing their shirt last episode, and actually on the last episode of Playing the Blues Cruise, I had one of his co-tour companions, Alex Everhart. That was super awesome. Um, we had a good time. Yeah, I'm not using my audio over there. I'm just speaking into the over on TikTok. It's just great. I'm guessing it. But yeah, so Alex Everhart was on last episode. We had a great time there. We had a good time hanging out. I think my last episode, 2.5 hours. Um, we had a good time. And he sang some tunes. Um, we all had a good time. So this last weekend, we went up to Omaha, the Iowa area, been to Council Bluffs, Coast. We did casinos, had a good time with casinos. Ended up coming out on top, so it was pretty good. Went up there for a bachelorette party. Not for us, but for some friends of ours. They get married this coming weekend. So, pretty good weekend wedding. I'm a big fan of weddings. I've never been married myself, but I'm a big fan of weddings. I like going. I do dance a little bit. I'm not a ton or nothing like that, obviously, but I'll go out and I'll do a little two-step and stuff like that. Uh, nothing too crazy. Something like it. I like weddings. Though. It's always a good vibe. Usually, everybody has a good time. Who's the tail popping in here? Um, yeah, it is what it is. Uh, obviously, I've been with Tasha. Me and Tasha have been together for 3 years. We just celebrated our anniversary. It's around the corner. I just haven't. It's really weird, like an echo. See, I don't know what the tool is because I didn't change anything. So weird. really weird because it wasn't like that on the other podcast. I don't get why it's doing it now. Because I turned it down before. How about that? Is that any better? Like, I don't hear it. I'm sorry, guys. This sounds weird. I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on. Why it's anything weird like that. I have everything else off, but just my mic. And why getting double feedback or whatever. Yeah, Dave's playing in Stromsburg solo on Friday night, Saturday night, random night. On our second Easter egg starting in June. So that's awesome. Yeah, we'll have to, this coming Saturday, go to win. So we'll see about that. Yeah, I don't know why, I don't know if my audio is a little weird or whatever, guys. I'm sorry. I'm not sure what's going on over on Twitter. You guys trudge through it, hang on, and we'll kind of to the bottom of it. I'm not sure. It's all new. It's a new board, new mics, new everything. I'm not sure what's going on. We're just gonna trudging along. We've got great beer to accompany. That's what we're doing right now. Amazing beer. Lake Pale Ale. Peachtree Brewing. Pretty delightful. Definitely not too bitter. Pretty smooth. And the ABV isn't high. So, you can definitely go to town. That's not pretty bad. That's terrible. I'm sorry, guys. If you're over and listening to this, I don't know why it's coming out. I guess I'll hear it on the playback. It's really weird. Anyhow, I'm just gonna keep going, I guess. Other than that, we just got the wedding coming up this weekend. Kids are starting to get ramped up for track and for softball. Pretty excited about that. Got the summer sports going on. It'll be kind of interesting. Be back and forth and all over the place. Seems like every weekend, the evil future for softball. I am not. So that could be possible. I would go out like it's all part of that. I don't think that the internet problem that was in town completely got fixed. So we'll do that too. Uh, actually, though, it's gonna be kind of a boring week, honestly. We said into this wedding. We are kind of getting ready to get stuff. Our oldest daughter graduates this year, so we'll be kind of getting that all set up and doing that. That'll fit all together. But it should be fun. I'll have a party for her the day before her graduation. Uh, be doing it. No, not doing it. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. If so, on TikTok, all you guys are hearing me just through my phone. So that's nothing crazy. I don't have any of my sound mic doing stuff. Let's try one thing. What I'm gonna do, burping on my microphone. Let's try.
Does that sound any better, guys? How about that? Is that cutting out at all or anything like that? Does that sound any better? I just changed a setting. Anybody over on the Twitch side of things? All right. Well, until I hear different. I just switched up some audio. I'm just trying to figure out. Yeah. So TikTok sounds fine because it's going directly through my phone. There's no mic, no nothing. It's just using my phone. So this is using this audio, and then it's going into the board, and then it's going over to the computer. So maybe that's some of it. It could be the internet is a little slow right now. That sounds better. Awesome. Okay. Can you hear here? I'm going to play way better. See, that was echo cancellation. I bet that's what was affecting it. All right, so I'm going to try to do a soundbite. TikTok, you guys aren't going to hear this. You let me know if you hear that stuff. Are you hearing all that? That should be fine. Okay, anyhow. Let's get back to the show. Why don't we? Okay. I'm just gonna keep drinking on this beer. I was on okay, very good. I was on a Just Be a Dad podcast before this. Oh, my sister hopping in here. Thank you very much. I was on Just Be a Dad podcast before this, and we were talking about 90s stuff. We were talking about some of our favorite 90s movies and 90s songs and everything. But we were also talking about the fact that the generations now is way different as far as 90s are concerned, right? So like kids nowadays have their phone and stuff like that. They have everything, a screen in front of them where they don't go out and play. These kids aren't, what I used to call like street light kids, like when the street lights came on, you were time to go home, stuff like that. They're not like that now. Hell, barely anymore. There's not even latchkey kids, which is like where your kid gets off school and then goes home to an empty house. Like that barely happens anymore. They go and until they're like a teenager almost anymore. Do they go and they usually have a babysitter or something like that, or somebody that watches them. Where like, I don't know, I probably walked home since the time I was probably like 7 or 8, I walked home. And don't get me wrong, I definitely did nefarious things. In middle school I used to steal cigarettes from my parents, and me and a group of kids would call them cookies, and we'd talk about how many cookies we got, and then we get off school and we go to this abandoned house and smoke cigarettes like little badasses and stuff like that. Austin Bodette hopping in here. What's up, man? I keep probably saying it wrong too, but I'm just going to keep saying it wrong. But yeah, so I remember all kinds of stuff like that, I'd go over to friends' houses that probably lived, a mile away or better. And I didn't grow up in as far as middle school in the 90s. I didn't grow up in a small town. I grew up in a town of 60,000 or something like that, which is small to some people, but it's a bigger town. It's a bigger area. I was all over the place. It was a whole different thing. I sometimes make my kids walk home from school even now. No, you do, but the school is also like in your backyard. I mean, across the street and in your backyard, front yard, whatever you want to call it. The pronunciation was right. Oh, nice. Bodette. There we go. I don't know, because if you're Southern, it's probably like Baudet or something like that. It's probably, there's probably some like Louisiana crawfish kind of pronunciation of that same name that doesn't sound like that French Canadian. But Bodette might be it to be. I don't know. I don't know anything. He's still walking up. Whatever. My co-host Kyle is on here from Unlikely Role Models, and he's talking about his kids walking home. He can literally look at stand on his front step and see the school. Like, he could probably spit hard enough to hit the school, but they do have to walk across a big field of 100 yards or so to get to his house. So but it is what it is. So but the 90s were different. We were talking about like the 90s were like a great time for sitcoms, where you don't have that same kind of sitcom kind of thing now. Married with Children and Friends was from the 90s, Seinfeld, stuff like that. You had like a what do I want to say, like audience Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, definitely 90s. Um, but there was people in the audience that were your laugh track. You didn't just have like a standard laugh track or whatever, like a lot of shows that I've noticed on like Netflix and stuff like that have. I understand that COVID had a lot to do with that too, but that same kind of like quote unquote sitcom is not anywhere close to the same now. And movies are different. There was things you could get away with in the 90s that there's no way in hell you could get away with now. I think Blazing Saddles was 80s, but like that's definitely it's definitely a TV show or a movie that would never be made now as Blazing Saddles. There's a lot of kind of in your face sexual innuendo that happened in the 90s you could not get away with now. A lot of like offhanded racism and stuff like that was in movies and TV shows you couldn't get away with now. Stuff. And then, but at the same time, there was nobody like complained about it. There was no cancel culture. There was nobody getting up in arms about it. It was a different mentality, all around, right? And so, just the nostalgia of it, we talked and we had an hour-long conversation where we pretty much just named different things from the 90s that we absolutely loved. Different cartoons and stuff like that we watched in the 90s. Show that ankle if you don't want none. There's all kinds of stuff that we really got to enjoy in the 90s, and a lot of people want to say the 90s is the last great generation, because now everything is so conceptualized based on technology. It's based on a TV screen in front of your face and stuff like that. It's completely different, I remember not having a remote for my TV. I remember having a black and white or color TV where you had to go up and like click the channels over and stuff like that, like hand-me-down shit. I brought this up in the other podcast. I remember my parents collecting Camels bucks and Marlboro points and like walking around with like a Marlboro members only jacket or something like that back in the day. Like super trashy now if you think about it, but I remember like getting like, I think my parents got like a color TV or something like that with Camel bucks back in the day. It was just a completely different mentality towards people. Ren and Stimpy was not and should not have been considered a kid's show. There was a lot in Ren and Stimpy. I will 100% agree with that. There was a lot in Ren and Stimpy that was like very questionable, like on the cusp of inappropriate. But if you're a kid, it's whatever, It's the same thing with like The Simpsons with what's that show he watches? Itchy and Scratchy or whatever. There's a lot of really questionable stuff on that too. There was topics, on the certain original episodes of The Simpsons. There were some topics that were, anymore. There's no way you could bring them up in a TV show in a tasteful manner without somebody getting up in arms about it. So, and then the movies were fantastic too. There was a great thing that I feel like is kind of lost now, where like I can vividly remember TGIF, right? So this was TGIF would have been ABC or an associate channel of it was channel 13, so it was ABC. Every Friday night would be a block of TV shows directed at kids and directed at kids of a certain age, right? So at the time I would have been that age. It would have been that late elementary to middle school to almost to high school, right in that, right? So we'll say 11 to 14 range or something like that. And it was Boy Meets World, and all those were all played all at the same time in a little block, all the new channels, right? So I want to say it was like Sabrina, maybe? Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Boy Meets World. There was two more. I can't remember off the top of my head. Um, but yeah, there was a lot of stuff where it was really directed at certain kids and dirt, but it wasn't. It was super tasteful. It was super super tasteful, and I just don't feel like there's that same thing now. It's either too poppy and this and that or whatever. It's just not. I don't. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's the old guy in me right now. But yeah, it was different. My co-host hopping in here. Even Rocco's Modern Life was borderline. I agree with that wholeheartedly too. Rocco's Modern Life. Courage the Cowardly Dog had some really really questionable episodes. Yeah, that was right up there. Everything was ninja in the 90s, and they were all great. Three Ninjas, Surf Ninjas, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Karate Kid. You're right, absolutely. We kind of talked about that stuff too. Rollerblades was huge in the 90s, right? Rollerblades was a huge deal. So there was great 90s movies about rollerblades. Airborne is one of my favorite movies of all time, still is. Every once in a while, if I can catch it on some kind of streaming network or whatever, I'll pull it up for sure. Airborne. Brink was a Disney Channel movie, but it was about kids that rollerbladed. Rollerblading was so huge, and now you barely ever hear about it. It's still in the X Games, but nobody cares about it. It's a whole different thing now. It's like Kamala Harris or whatever her name is. Nobody cares. She's there. She's in the office. Nobody cares. That's what rollerblading is now. Except for that one guy. There's one guy on TikTok. One guy on TikTok that still rollerblades. No, there's two. Because there's the bigger guy that's a little bit smaller than me that does that backflip. And he's like, this is what the male perfect athlete looks like or whatever. But then there's another guy. It's kind of a ripped guy that is like super good at rollerblading. And he shows off and like wearing Jinko jeans and no shirt and whatever. I don't know. But it's very, very nostalgic, very 90s. So I love all things 90s. I like all of everything I stream music on. All of those have all like the 90s stations saved, whether it be Spotify or Amazon Music or whatever. All of those, I listen to all the 80s or all the 90s stuff. I listen to 80s too, but all the 90s stuff. I literally went shopping for albums this last weekend when we were in that Omaha area and stuff, and I bought like the Goo Goo Dolls Greatest Hits album. I bought an original Nirvana, whatever their original one. I can't think. I want to say it's Off the Deep End, but that's not what it's called. Nevermind, the Nevermind album in original plastic, and another great '90s band, Black Crowes, another great '90s band. I bought all those this weekend, so. Scooters were popular for a bit, but never took off, and now people have them and they're reliving their glory days. Scooters were kind of a 2000s thing. I wouldn't put scooters in the 90s. You know what I will put in the 90s? Big wheels. Big wheels were huge in the 90s. I couldn't tell you a kid that didn't have a big wheel. That's probably kind of teetering over from the 80s. I will say that for sure. But big wheels were a big thing. Kind of like pogo sticks, damn death traps, right? I never had a pogo stick. I'm perfectly okay not having a pogo stick. Here's a funny thing. So I wouldn't say it was in the country, right? So I still lived in the city limits, but it was like right in city limits. So our road was gravel, but like the highway was right there. Everything was right there. And I lived really close to a bunch of cul-de-sacs and stuff like that. They would have been like suburbs, But so that meant that like my driveway was also gravel and everything, except for about a 6-foot wide by about 30-foot long stretch of really, really smooth pavement that led up to my that led up to my porch. So the way I learned to rollerblade is I got these rollerblades for like Christmas or something. And the way that I learned to rollerblade is I would stand on the porch and I would start skating off the porch, jump off the porch and land on this really smooth concrete and go down to the end and then I would turn around and I would skate back and jump back up on the porch. So it was like a stretch of like 40 feet by like 6 or 8 foot wide. That's how I learned to rollerblade. And then I'd go to like Skate Island, like go to the skating rink and skate, which RIP, the skating rink that was in the town that we used to go to, the one that I used to go to, used to get dropped off, right? Every Friday night we get dropped off with like $10 or whatever. That was enough to get you some skates, get you to play some games and maybe a drink or snack or something like that. And you'd go and you'd skate for 4 or 5 hours or whatever. And your mom would come and pick you up. That's something that doesn't happen anymore either. Your mom does. It's me. I'm not sure what you're talking about, but if it's you, good luck. My mom's a lovely lady. Uh, she's a giver. She's a giver. But yeah, there's just such. I love the '90s. I love reminiscing. I love, my biggest thing that I brought up from the '90s, Super Soakers. Oh my God, there was like the one that was like the Super Soaker 150 or whatever, which was like the creme de la creme, like the first Super Soaker that came out. I remember having like the special edition one of that. It was like all chrome with like the neon green bottle and whatever. That one worked the best out of all of them. But I remember I had a backpack one that you had to have like a special stand, and you'd set it on the stand, and it would fill up with water and like compressed air or whatever. And that thing, you could probably blow an eye out if you got close enough to somebody with that. You said you never had a pogo stick. Ah, your mom does. It's me. I got it. I got it. I like it. Your mother. But yeah, Super Soaker was also your mom. Coming in hot. Nice job. Nice job. That's a good callback right there. Fucking asshole. But yeah, so it's a great whatever. The '90s were fantastic. So I got a couple people on TikTok. What's your guys' favorite memories of the '90s? You guys tell me your favorite memories of the '90s. We'll talk about them. We'll bring them up. We'll talk about them. I know there's some people on here that want to talk. Let's hear it. I'm gonna finish this beer. Nobody. So the biggest thing I remember is that I definitely remember being a latchkey kid, to where I could go home, or I'd get off work, or I should say, I would get off school, but my parents wouldn't get off work until 5 or 6 o'clock at night. They were normal working parents. Boy, did I get into some shit sometimes. Like, and maybe that's probably why eventually they stopped doing it, right? Altogether, like parents stopped doing it because kids were burning down houses and whatnot. But there's so many memories of shit that I did back in the day. I used to love putting lighter fluid in ashtrays. Like I would put a bunch of lighter fluid in an ashtray and I'd light it on fire. See how long it burned. I broke apart like a 2-inch ashtray one time because I just put like a stream of lighter fluid, like Zippo lighter fluid, across the middle of it and lit it up. And it blew apart, but it was still on fire. And everything that was, all the paper or whatever I had in it was still there. And it burnt a hole in this rug underneath the coffee table. So all I remember doing is picking everything up and hiding all the evidence. And then when my parents came home, I sat down on that spot. And we watched TV together. That's something in the '90s that used to happen. It doesn't hardly ever happen anymore. Like if you got smaller kids, you watch movies with your kids. But usually, it's something that doesn't happen a lot in our house. There's not a lot of times anymore with our kids getting older that we watch all the same stuff or whatever. They're usually have their devices or whatever, and they're watching whatever. And so I sat on that spot while we watched TV all night long or whatever. And then it was my time to go to bed. I had a bedtime. I'd go to bed, went to bed. And then all I hear is like, what the hell is this? And blah, blah, blah. And I have no idea. I was just sitting there or whatever, playing stupid. Yeah, it was a big hole. It had to have been like probably 2 inches around or something like that. It was pretty crazy. I was an idiot, but it is what it is. So Kyle's hopping in here. No social media, always riding bike outside with friends. Absolutely. I rode my bike all the time, and I had to ride forever to get to some of my friends, but I still rode my bike all the time and hung out with my friends, and very rarely just hung out at home by myself or whatever. It just wasn't something I did. Played video games with friends, not online. LAN parties. LAN parties is a great thing. If we're gonna talk 90s, we're talking this would have been Super Nintendo or Nintendo 64. You're looking at like GoldenEye and stuff like that. First person shooter GoldenEye, where you can have up to 4 people on the screen. I remember like taping cardboard and shit like that to the screen so you couldn't look at each other's screens. I remember like taking the whole consoles over to friends' houses and stuff like that. Like, oh, I'll bring my whatever, PlayStation or whatever. And you'd bring TVs and whole consoles over to people's houses. Now you just play online with everybody. It's definitely different. It's a whole different ball of wax. Sad times. We live in sad times. I think we live in like a really cool, technologically advanced time compared to obviously anything that came before us. But I also feel like it's taken the personal touch out of things. And you don't have the same bonds that you do with friends and things. And yes, obviously some of that is getting older and, becoming parents and whatever. But I also feel like it's just not the same as people that used to, hang out. I remember even playing online, right? Even playing with people online. My uncle, now this wouldn't have been in the 90s, I will say that. This would have been probably 2004, 2005, owned like an internet cafe. It was a building you'd go into, and they had all new Alienware computers. And we would get together. They probably had 20 computers in there. And we would get together at night, and they'd schedule it and stuff like that. And we'd get together, and there'd be 20 of us in there all playing, say, Battlefield or something like that. And we would start at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and we would go until, noon the next day or whatever, like super long periods of time. And we would just be juiced up on Ball's energy drinks and Reese's peanut butter cups, playing like we'd all battle each other. We'd go online and battle against people online and stuff like that. It was a whole different dynamic compared to how the majority of stuff works now. But yeah, music was different too. Right now, I feel that we consume music in such a negative way with the ability to stream and pick and choose one song. That's why I've gotten so into vinyl in this last 2 years or something like that I started collecting. I love vinyl because it forces you to listen to the album. You don't just listen to one song and then then move the needle and pull the record off and pull out another record and put it, like you get to listen to the whole thing. Hey, absolutely. Hey, thanks for hopping in here though, Kyle. I'll nothing else fails, I will see you Thursday. For our podcast, Unlikely Role Models, which will be Thursday at 9:30 p.m. just in case you're wondering. But I love listening to vinyl because it forces you to listen to the entire side of an album and then you flip it over. So it gives you a chance to you just enjoy the music differently. And that's what I really, really enjoy. I love just sometimes you find songs that you never would have listened to if you were just picking and choosing what song you want to listen to through like a streaming thing or whatever. And I very rarely ever download a whole album or something like that streaming and listen to a whole album digitally. I just it's a whole different. I don't do that. But I'll sit here and I'll crack open a couple of beers and I'll have a cigar or something like that, and I'll just enjoy listening to an album. I'll just kick back and hey, we're gonna just listen to this and just whatever, and just me, myself, and I out here in my own thoughts and whatever as I jam through an album. That's something that's definitely lost on this generation. So, let me polish this one off, and I'll get into another one. Let's go after the big boy now. So this is 10 count Imperial Black IPA. So I will premise this, I've never had a black IPA. I bought this because, specifically, I've never had a black IPA, and this is a great brewery. This is Lupulin Brewery or Brewing in Big Lake, Minnesota. This is 10% ABV, but it's a black IPA. I've never had a black IPA. So let's crack her open, pour her out. We'll see what we think. This might be my last one because this is a big boy, but we'll see. We'll see. I've got one more hiding over here, so we'll see what we got. Oh, geez. This really does pour. This pours out like a stout or a porter. Even the foam looks, and it's super smooth. It's thick. She's thick, boys. Okay, so I didn't pull much off all that. Look at that. She's dark. That's super dark. I poured out about half in this glass, maybe a little bit more than half. I've got a 2.5, almost 3 finger tall tan, dark tan head. It smells more like a stout than it does an IPA for sure. And I don't know what makes a black IPA. I really should have looked that up for you guys. I am pulling some like pine notes. All right, here we go. All right, here we go. Whoa. Okay. So that's really strange. How do I want to describe this? It really leans towards a stout. It leans like pretty heavily towards a stout. So like my co-host Kyle would hate this. He doesn't like stouts and porters. This leans towards like that porter stout kind of thing. There's almost like a chocolatey kind of resonance in the taste and the mouthfeel. It definitely hits your palate more like a stout or a porter does. But then you have some hops and some like pine notes in there that kind of like give you a little wink towards an IPA. This is so strange. This is really... I don't know that I would have called this an IPA, though. At least the style of beer. I would have called it something else that would kind of give more of a nod, in my opinion, to the fact that it's more like a porter or a stout. So it's not as heavy as a porter or stout, but it's definitely heavier. So, like, in the grand scheme of it, stout is the heaviest, in my opinion, usually. Porters come after that, going down the list. This is right there. This is at that porter stout meetup. Black IPA fits in there somewhere. I like it. I'm not a big stout and porter guy as much anymore. I really do enjoy IPAs more. I'd drink this again for sure, but I would have to be more in the mood for it. I will say that. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying anything super severe against it by any means. I really do enjoy it. It's got some great can art too. I'm going to show off to the TikTok world first, and then it's got a little boxing match going on there. 10 rounds in a boxing match, or 10 count. 10 count, so you have to, like when you're get called out for, get knocked out or whatever, it's 10 count. I couldn't even tell you who the fighters are. I could have looked that up for you guys too, but I didn't. I had a lot going on with this. So it says brewed in collaboration with Caleb Truax. So maybe that's one of the fighters? Caleb Truax? I'm not sure. But it's a 1 pint can. In case you guys are just listening, it's a black can with some gold metallic pictures on it with the 10 count. It's kind of like matte black and gold. It's a really cool can. I really do enjoy that can. It's kind of neat. If you're just hopping in here, we're just kind of talking about some beers, talking about some 90s nostalgia, and kind of getting into it a little bit, talking a little bit about the new gear. So if you guys are either viewing me or listening to me or whatever, it does sound different. It's because I got some new gear. I got over on TikTok. I'm not going to sound that much different. I will say that. I am trying to work that out. I think I have to order a cable specifically for that. But I got a new soundboard. I got 4 new mics, so we are going to be bringing on guests a little bit more often. And then this week I didn't change the visual aspect of this. I'm going to change to a different camera, but I'm just using my new phone. Like I have an S22, so it's probably just about as good as of a video as you're going to pull off of a phone. That's what I'm using right now. I am going to use my GoPro just because it'll shoot at 4K a lot better and a little bit crisper, but I haven't switched that over yet. I did get the cables and stuff to do that, but I didn't want to add too much on one episode. So if you guys are just getting into podcasting or you want to kind of take a dive, I started out just wanting to do a podcast. I started out, all I wanted to do was just have people listen to me talk. It's as self-serving as that is. That's kind of what it comes down to. I'm a really social person, and in my job, I don't get a lot of that. I don't get that social aspect. You know, sometimes I talk to customers and stuff like that here and there. I just so you guys know, I do like cable, fiber optic, but I'm mainline maintenance at this time. So that means most of the time I'm in a bucket truck dealing with big problems or doing like commercial installs, like businesses and stuff like that. So I don't have that interaction a whole lot. Like it's usually just me doing my job. And you know, I talk to some of my co-employees or whatever you want to call that, you know, peers. And I talk to them a little bit here and there, but not the same, you know, like it's not the same deal. And so I wanted an outlet for that social part of things, and I've wanted to do podcasts for a long time. This one's kind of all over the place usually. Like I do mostly beer reviews, and then I just fill in between beer reviews with just kind of talking and whatever. I did bring in a guest last week. That was really fun, and kind of moved things along. It definitely moves things along a little bit better when I have a second person. So I'll probably start doing that a little bit more. But we'll probably start doing that a little bit more on our other podcast, which is Unlikely Role Models. That's me and another co-host, which is one of my best friends, and we do that. And it's a lot more. We get to like vibe off of each other and stuff, and I think that'll be really fun to bring guests in on that. I don't know what you're gonna say. Bringing guests on that podcast will be a little bit different too and be fun. So now we have the ability to do that with this new gear. So the new soundboard is sounding great as far as now that we got the kind of kinks knocked out of it and all that. So the next upgrade will be the camera, but the camera is actually really good in this. I'd like to get us to a point where we have more of a permanent spot. Like I move this table out of the way every week and stuff like that, and I just bring it out for the podcast, and then every 2 weeks I just put it back. I'd like to have like a better background, except for like I love all my gnomes back here and stuff like that, but then I use this back, like we sit right here, and this is the background for the other podcast too, and I'd like a better background and so that's all future stuff. The main thing is getting the soundboard, getting this. This is a big investment. This is kind of uh, me and my co-hosts on the other show. It was one of those things where we talked about it. We'd wanted to do it and upgrade and make. We started with just using our phones essentially, and then we moved to just using our phones and laptops and shooting everything live, so we don't have to edit anything. Which I still love doing it live. I love having people that are watching it be able to interact with us right away, and we can talk about things, and we can talk about whatever pops in. They can chime in and say things, and then it kind of breeds talking points. I really love that. Like, especially if you guys are on here and you're watching, you're not in the comments. You're only watching so much, right? You're only so much of the show. You have the ability to pop in here and talk and be part of the conversation with this podcast, which you don't get that with a lot of podcasts, right? They don't shoot them live. You don't get to say your 2 cents. On our shows, you do. So it's a little bit different. So that's how we started. We literally started with just phones, phone for the camera, phone for the audio. That was like how we started. And then we've moved up to where now we use the computer to do everything from one thing and do it live and everything like that. And then I have TikTok running. That runs specifically off my phone. I'll get some better audio going to that here in a week or two, whenever I order that cable. But other than that, I'm really happy with how everything's going. I'm happy with the way we're progressing, and we made a big step. We ordered shirts. We ordered all about $1,000 worth of equipment. We ordered stickers. Stickers are coming soon too, so we'll be able to talk about all of that on the show on Thursday. So as far as Horny Gnome Booze Cruise, I kind of already have merch. I had merch from TikTok, so I still have some shirts left over from that. Eventually, I will probably make another line of shirts and make an order and see if anybody wants any. I'll probably do one more set of those, and then that'll probably breed some of those people that weren't super, part of the show before and now are, and so they'll order some stuff too. But yeah, other than that, that's kind of what's going on here. So just new equipment. We're getting there. I've got some equipment that I got like little. You guys can't hear it over on TikTok, but I got like little, like I can do like little sounds and BS. I can download like a whole song intro to a button too. I think that's something we're gonna do too. I would like to have a intro made for my show, and I'd like to have an intro made for the Unlikely Podcast intro as well. I don't have a friend that does that. I have an idea of how to kind of do it by myself, but I think I'm going to reach out and see if anybody wants to do it, kind of like put it out on our Facebook or something like that, and kind of see if anybody is down to share their talents and make something cool for us. So we might do something like that. Send them out some merch and stuff like that and pay them, to help us out. So right now, in case you're just hopping in here and you want to know what I'm drinking on, I'm drinking 10 Count Imperial Black IPA from Lupulin Brewing out of Big Lake, Michigan. I've been to Michigan. I went to Ely. No. What's M in? Is M in Michigan or Minnesota? Big Lake, Minnesota. I bet it's Minnesota. I bet Michigan is MI, isn't it? I feel like an idiot that I've said it like 4 times now. So it's Big Lake, Minnesota is where Lupulin Brewing is from. And I have been to Minnesota. I went to Ely, Minnesota, which is all the way up right before the Canadian border. So it's part of what they call the Boundary Waters, which is a big group of glacial lakes that's like right at the border between the United States and Canada. And so there's so many of them that are United States lakes, and then you can honestly go from this lake to this lake to this lake and be up in Canada. You can portage over between lakes and stuff like that. We portaged a couple times, but we pretty much stayed on the first couple lakes. This was a lot of ours first times out, and we hadn't done it, so we didn't do a lot of portage. I want to say it's portaging, port, because I think it's a port when you go from one body of water to the next body of water. I might be wrong. If somebody's in here and they can correct me, that'd be awesome. But I think that's what it's called. I think it's called a portage. So it's like, so we went out on canoes. So we launched on one lake. So we had like an outfitter and everything like that. So they set us up with 5 days worth of food and water, or food and everything else that we needed, like pans and all that jazz. We had our clothing packed for 5 days. And then so we would get it. We had everything ready, and then so we went out on like certain canoes. Like there was 3 of us in one, two. There was, I'm trying to think of all together. One of them had 2, the other one had 2. We had 3 in ours. That's it. That was the whole group. So what's that make? 7 of us all together. Um, it was honestly one of the funnest things I've ever done. We go out there. We stay in like a little hotel kind of thing for the first night. And then we just load up all of our stuff, and then we go, and then they pretty much like, here's all your stuff, here's your canoes, drop us off on the water, deuces. We'll pick you up in 5 days. Like that's like the long and short of how it was. Like they helped us launch a little bit and stuff like that. But so we loaded up the canoes with all these big plastic containers that had different things. They were big plastic containers that had all of our food and cooking utensils and everything in it. And then some of our tents and stuff were in other different like waterproof containers and bags and that kind of thing. And then we launched. So we had to go out, and then we probably, I don't know, we probably rode for like 3 or 4 hours or something like that altogether. It seemed like a long time. And then we found an island that we liked. We got on the island. And there was already on the island, there was already like a fire pit and everything. So all we had to do was like set up camp. We set up all of our tents and stuff. 3 of us stayed in one, and there was 2 couples with us. Each couple stayed in their own. And we all just kind of did that. We set up a hammock. We brought a hammock with us and stuff. So we cooked all of our meals right there at that island and stuff. And then we'd go out and we'd adventure off, and we'd go and fish or whatever. It was super, super cool. It was one of like arguably the best vacation I've ever been on. The water is like glass at night. I have some of the coolest pictures of like the moon reflecting off the water, and stuff like that. Ultra, ultra peaceful. It was. I can't say enough good things about it. I would love to go back and do it again. I am way more out of shape than I was when I went. That was pre-injury and stuff like that, and probably, I don't know, 120 pounds ago or something like that. But I would love to go back. It would be super rad if I could ever go back. Let me keep drinking on this beer. This is 16 ounces of it, and I've probably only done, I don't know, 4 or 5 ounces of it. It's definitely thick. It's thick. There's not a lot of snap to it. It's bitter, but it's bitter like a stout or a porter. So you kind of get a little bit of that like chocolatey note or like that coffee note kind of in there, but I don't know how to describe it. Kind of. The only thing that like nods its cap or whatever, like nods its hat to an IPA, is there's a little bit of a hoppy presence there. There's a little bit of a piney resonance and stuff like that. But other than that, 100%. If somebody like handed it to me, poured it out, and said, "Oh, hey, this is a porter," I'd be like, "Okay." Drink it, and be like, "Oh yeah, it's a pretty good porter." That's kind of how I feel about this. I really expected something way different. To be completely honest with you, somebody says black IPA, I would have expected something completely different than this. It's okay. This isn't like my favorite thing I've drank. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd probably put this closer to like a 7, like a solid 7 over anything else. It's okay. I have another can of it. I will drink that other can of it. I might do it on the other podcast just so he can try it too. But even then, I don't know. I don't think he's gonna like it at all. I will say that. I'll put $100 on it right now that my co-host will hate this beer. But but other than that, that's kind of what's going on. Let's see. What do we want to dive into? Because I've got half a beer here and another beer. We can dive into something. We can do an hour and a half or something here. Uh, Summertime. Okay, so it's spring right now. Obviously, we've got storms coming in here. We got big windstorms coming through. We got all kinds of stuff going on. Summertime though, late spring, summertime is my favorite. I don't like the dreadful heat. No. But unless I'm camping. If I'm camping, yeah, fuck it. It can be as hot as it wants to be. The hotter the better. I don't give a rat's ass. Because if I'm camping by a body of water that I can get in, and I don't care. If I get hot, I'll go get in the water. It's like that easy. I love summertime. I love cutting my grass. Sometimes I bellyache about it here and there or whatever, but it's just because more than likely my week has been long or whatever, and I'm not finding the time to do it, or the little bit of time that I do have, I don't feel like that I want to be cutting grass. That being said, I still really love cutting grass. I love throwing some headphones on and just jamming out to some tunes for 2 hours while I cut the grass. I love doing that. I don't like the bugs that come along with summer at all. Flies are really bad around here. My house, for some reason, is like a weird natural attractant for wasps. So I deal with wasps every year. Um, we had a nest up in my daughter's window last year that had to have been 6 inches wide, 20 inches long. It was crazy big. It was the biggest wasp nest that I've ever seen. I've seen big, like beehives bigger or whatever, but this was a wasp nest and it was huge. So I climbed up on, like, there's a roof that's right there, like behind that window or whatever. It's hard to explain, but there's an awning. That awning has like a solid roof on it, like a solid shingled roof. So I climbed up on that and I just filled that window with as much foam wasp spray stuff as I could. A couple got away, but I straight murdered like 200 wasps. Like, you don't serve a purpose. You can die. I don't care. I hate wasps. And they freak out. I have 4 daughters and a girlfriend, and they all freak out when they see wasps. Oh, I don't want to go out there. There's a wasp. Like, oh my god. So I always have some kind of canned aerosol spray for wasps or something like that. And we're going in summertime. They're going to be everywhere. So that's something that I am not looking forward to, is this ridiculous wasp problem that I'm sure I'm going to have this year. And then flies. Flies, we love hanging out on this back patio. We have a back patio that's covered at our house, and we love hanging out there too. The only problem with hanging out there is that there's a lot of flies. So the only solution is to find like things to get rid of flies. Last year we found the ticket. So we buy these fly bags. They have like some stuff in the bottom. You put a little bit of water in it, and then it turns into this solution that attracts flies. The bags are made by Rescue. I think Rescue is the brand. They're like lime green plastic bag. It's the grossest thing you're ever going to do. I will say this. Okay, I'm going to premise this by saying that it gets nasty. But you go and you buy these bags, and you hang them up, you put this water in it, whatever, and flies can get in, they just can't fly out. Well, they like I don't know what flies are, herds by the herds go into this bag, and then they go and then they get into this bottom thing and they try to get out and they can't and they die. And it just these bags just fill with fly corpses. And then it's like a point of pride because you just have thousands of flies that are just dead bodies stacking to the roof. And you're like, look at all these bastards. But I will say this, it cuts down the amount of flies that are on that back patio by 90%, I bet. Like, I've tried yard sprays and I've tried soap. Like, dial soap was a thing that you're supposed to put dial soap on stuff, and that smell keeps them away. That did nothing. I've tried all kinds of things until these bags, and then I tried these bags. I hung that bag up, and within the first week, that thing was full to the top. And then what happens is like those flies' bodies decompose, and then it just keeps bringing in more flies. It's the craziest thing. You leave it up forever, and they'll just keep going in there, and the flies will decompose, and then you'll just whatever. You're supposed to like switch it out. I don't switch it out. I leave it up for a couple of weeks, at least 2-3 weeks, maybe a month, until it like, and then you'll see it like it'll be all the way to the top, and then the next day all those fly bodies like decompose, all kinds of room. I know this is not in any way, shape, or form part of my beer podcast fucking talk, but it's the craziest shit, and I thought that everybody needed to know. Rescue fly traps are the best. I'm not sponsored. I'm not paid for this. I'm just saying, you go to Walmart, you spend like, I think they're like, for the big bags, like the XL bags, I think they're $8. $8 completely worth it. It's crazy. Anyhow, okay, so I hate flies. We're going to get into that, but I hate flies. But this year is going to be different. We got to, with this garage so I turned my garage into like a full-blown bar. You can't kind of tell here. But I have like this dart space. This table moves out of the way. I've got a full bar in here. Everything has changed up this year. I got a ceiling fan in here. I brought in heat over the winter. We didn't have heat last year. We just did space heaters. So I got heat in this year. And then I'm bringing in a big boy air conditioner too to keep this nice and cool. I'd like to keep this at 70 degrees. I feel like 70 degrees is money, right? And I'd like to keep this garage at it. It's insulated and everything. There's no reason I can't keep it at 70 degrees. But it won't. It'll be hot as balls in here for whatever reason. This garage gets so hot. So it is what it is. But I'll have a much bigger air conditioner, which will help definitely. Because I was trying to use this little tiny window shaker last summer. Oh my God, it did absolutely nothing. Like, it did fuck all for me. Like a girl with no ass and no tits, it did fuck all for me. This little tiny air conditioner tried all its heart. Like, it tried as hard as it could to lower the temperature in this garage, and I don't think it did anything. It would freeze up. I'd have to like shut it off and open it up so the air can get to it, so it thaw that ice out. It's probably because it was low on Freon or whatever. But this time, the air conditioner I'm putting in is like 4 times the size, so it'll make a huge difference. So, if you guys are new to the comments over on TikTok, or if you're over on YouTube or Twitch or Twitter or any of those, hop in here, say what's up, introduce yourself, whatever you want to do. This is the Horny Gnome Booze Cruise podcast that we're currently doing right now. We're about an hour and 11 minutes in or something like that. This is my solo one. Every once in a while, well, that was weird. Must have been it's really windy out. Like, you can't tell, but it's like 60-mile-an-hour winds, and I just heard like something, and that's with my ear, with my headphones on. Probably my garbage can getting thrown into the neighbor's yard. But yeah, we usually do beer reviews and stuff like that, a little bit of everything. But we're talking about kind of a little bit of everything today. We were talking about some 90s stuff, 90s nostalgia. I love 90s nostalgia. We were talking about that. I was a guest on Just Be a Dad podcast before my podcast started. So we talked about 90s stuff and some of our favorite 90s songs and 90s movies and 90s cartoons, a little bit of everything. We had a great time talking about all that. So we talked a little 90s on this. We talked a little bit about my new equipment that I got in. We got 4 new mics in, 4 new booms, new Rodecaster Pro soundboard. So we dropped a little bit of money to make our podcast sound a little bit better. And we're just kind of going through the motions, drinking some beers, talking some shit. Uh, and everybody's just listening to me talk. So it is what it is, right? Uh, Eventually, TikTok will also be able to hear me in all my microphone glory over here. Uh, Once I get that cord, Rode makes cables specifically to where you have to use Rode cables. I think it's super dumb, but the cable that I spent $6 on, you got to spend $40 on, and then it will recognize it. So it's super stupid. I don't want to spend the $40 just so like my phone can get my audio, but it is what it is. More than likely, I'm going to do it because I still go live every single week. Every single time I do a podcast, I go live on TikTok. I think I have a much bigger presence on TikTok. I have a lot more friends over on TikTok. I have a lot bigger of a following. And I like that following to interact with this podcast. So it's nice seeing a little bit of everybody. And everybody hops in and says what's up and stuff. So it's really cool. Some of my better followers over there on the old TikTok hops in here. But yeah, so I'm just going to I got about a half a glass of this black IPA, and then we're going to wash it down with spoiler alert, tropical IPA. We're gonna polish her down with. I will say this: 16 ounces of this is hard to drink. I'm not gonna lie. I definitely wanted it gone 4 ounces ago at this point. A 12-ounce can would have been fine. But yeah. What else we got? I'm a big Chiefs fan. You can kind of see I got like this Chiefs Super Bowl champions thing over here. Big Chiefs fan. It's going to be a wild year. This NFL offseason has been batshit crazy. Oh, I do want to take a second to just acknowledge Dwayne Haskins. They got hit by a truck in Florida this last week. That's a tragedy. 24 years old. Quarterback in the NFL. I mean, realistically, nobody had kind of said who the starter was going to be for the Steelers. They were down there training in South Florida. The job easily could have been his. It's a super sad deal, especially somebody so young. Obviously, it could have been anybody, and it would have been a sad deal. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to put that out there. But the fact that he was so young, promising career ahead of him, it's a really bum deal. And then I just heard about this a couple hours ago. Gilbert Gottfried passed away today too. Great comedian, great stand-up comedian. Has been in, everything, right? I want to say he's probably in his 60s, probably almost 70. I have not seen if they was a cause of death, anything like that. But the comedy world will definitely miss him. That's for sure. Arguably the most unique voice in all of Hollywood and comedy. But he was in everything. He was great. He did a couple of roasts not that long ago, and his stuff was kind of touch and go, but it was still really funny. And I really appreciate stand-up comedy. It's one of those things that I'm a huge fan of stand-up comedy. I really enjoy it. I know a lot of comedians. My brother-in-law is a comedian in Denver. And I've kind of kicked around the idea a couple of different times of doing some stand-up sets and stuff like that. I don't know as far as if I had a written out thing or whatever. I don't know. But I appreciate comedians for sure. And especially guys, like him, he started, from almost nothing and built himself up into this niche, right? Like nobody else can fill his shoes as far as what he fit into in the comedy scene. And so he'll definitely be missed for sure. I'm just kind of putting off drinking the rest of this beer. It's not that it's a bad beer. It's just heavy. And I know this next one is light, but this is a heavy beer. Like this feels like 2 beers. There it is, down the hatch. Well, that's a bad burp. I don't like burps. You gotta shake it off. So does it taste good, coming back up? I don't like that. All right. Last but certainly not least, for the evening, we're at an hour 18, which is way more content than I thought I was going to be able to put out tonight. After doing another podcast before this, and then all this stuff with all this audio that I was like in and out and not working and working and whatever, I thought it was going to be a short show. Anyhow, I love the name of this next IPA. Number one, this is one of my favorite breweries of all time. I have a personal connection to this brewery. It's local to me. I know the master brewer. I know like the number 2 brewer. I know a bunch of other people that work in like the main brewery, and then I know half of the owners at least, if not all the owners, and then all the general managers of all the different tap rooms and stuff like that. And that's not necessarily like a name drop thing. It just means that like I back this brewery all the time because they put out phenomenal stuff. And then one of the owners of that also owns Sideshow Spirits I talked about earlier. They just put out like such a quality product, right? So this is with almost no crazy can art, and all their stuff usually has pretty crazy can art. This is Bangarang Tropical IPA from Kincaider Brewing Company out of Broken Bow, Nebraska. So this is local to me. Broken Bow is probably like an hour 15, hour 30 from me, but the closest tap room is in Grand Island, Nebraska. Grand Island, Nebraska is in an old Nathan Detroit's location, which is a super rad kind of like members only Eagles clubby kind of thing at one point, where they had like an indoor basketball hoop and stuff with hardwood floors hanging off the balcony. It's crazy, but it's a great location. It's a tap room and restaurant in Grand Island, Nebraska. They also have a tap room in Lincoln, Nebraska, and then they have a tap room in Omaha, Nebraska at the Exarban area. So we're going to pour this out. This is a tropical IPA. It dropped April 1st, so I was lucky to get some of the first 4 packs that came out of this, or 6 packs, or whatever it was. Kind of a heavy pour I poured on it here. So like I said, nothing crazy about the can art. If you wrap all the way around, there's like a pirate ship kind of thing, and like a lot of like jungle-ish artwork, and then just that pirate ship. So Bangarang, if you're not familiar, Bangarang, the phrase, comes from Hook. It was Rubio, I think that's what his name is, Rufio, which is like who took over for Peter Pan when Peter Pan turned into like a real whatever, played by Robin Williams, and Rufio took over, and Bangarang was like a saying or something like that. It's such a great name, right? Bangarang is a great name. It's a tropical IPA that kind of leans itself towards like the tropical forest area of Peter Pan. It's a great kind of subject matter. I really enjoy that part of that for sure. But yeah, it's a tropical IPA. I do not know what hops they used. It does not say. Let's see. It's double dry hopped and juicy with a unique blend of hops. Imparts tropical flavors such as passion fruit, melon, ripe mango, sun-kissed berries. It is a 5.7 ABV. Pretty outstanding. My nose is. I think I'm allergic to cigarette smoke, and my will-be wife one day comes out here. She smokes out here, and so I think me sitting out here for long periods of time makes my nose kind of stuffy and whatever. I have the same thing in the bedroom too, because she steals my pillows all the time. Man, this even with my stuffed up nose, it smells so fantastic. It just smells like I'm just like face deep in like some kind of a pina colada kind of situation. Man, it smells good. Okay, here we go. Oh yeah, all those flavors there too. It's got this nice little tropical array of fruits going on, but it still has a nice little traditional IPA kind of wink to it. It's got a little piney dankness to it. It is a hazy. You can tell it's a nice hazy IPA. When I poured it out, I had about a 1 finger tall white head on it. Nothing crazy. Um, this is another good one. Um, all of their um, all of their malts and stuff like that they use for their grain bill, all that is sourced locally in Crete, Nebraska. And then they order their hops in. Sometimes they get hops out of local stuff, but not very often. So this is another win for them. I love Kincaid Brewing Company. I got stickers on my laptop. I got the hiccups too. Sorry guys, but I got stickers over on my. This is gonna suck. Give me a second here. Over on my beer fridge, I've got stickers over there as well. There we go. I just needed to calm down a little bit, maybe. But yeah, so I love Kincaid. Kincaid is awesome. They just keep knocking it out of the park. There's very, very, very few beers from Kincaid where I'm not totally in love with them. There's a couple I could definitely pass, like, but it's not because they're bad beers necessarily. It's more 9 out of 10 times. If there's a beer that I pass on from Kincaid, it's because I don't like that style of beer, right? So I'm not a big blonde guy. So anything that's usually a blonde from any brewery, there's very, very few breweries that produce a blonde where I'm like, oh yeah, I love this beer. I'm not a big blonde guy. Um, they do some great radlers. Like they have a grapefruit radler that drops maybe next week, 2 weeks, within the next 2 weeks. If you ever get a chance to do that, the grapefruit radler from Kincaid Brewing Company is amazing. It's not quite what I would consider like a Paloma. It's actually, in my opinion, it's better. So you get a little bit of that beer. What am I thinking of here? The beer fizziness, that beer carbonation, and some of that, just a little bit of that beer taste. You get a little bit of that malty, that kind of comes through. But then that grapefruit is nice and pronounced and thorough throughout the whole thing. And it's a nice crispy bite at the end of it. It's a great beer. That grapefruit radler is phenomenal. And it was made for, the grapefruit radler was actually made for a bike, like a bike across Nebraska thing is what it was originally made for. There's like I can't think of what it's called, but there's a thing where you can bike all the way across the state of Nebraska, and you stay at like campsites and stuff like that. And that's kind of what that the grapefruit radler is like a nod to, is that whole thing, because it's a nice, refreshing summertime beer. I love grapefruit radler. It's great. Well, we're at 127. I figured I was going to kill this at 130. That's probably what my plan is. So let me drop some stuff. I don't have any sponsors or any of that stuff. I do want to nod to Kincaid Brewing Company. All the owners and stuff like that are really cool about anytime a new beer drops, they let me know what's going on, and I am trying to get in there and get it as soon as possible. It's super awesome. I do want to shout out to Highway 14 Brewing. They kind of are the same way with me. All the guys over there are super awesome. They, as soon as they drop something new, they usually let me know, and I can review it for all you guys and for TikTok and everything like that. If you want more of me, which I don't know why, but if you want more of me, I am on another podcast that I run and produce and co-host called Unlikely Role Models Podcast. That has a little bit more structure to it. We talk about crazy state laws. We with a new state every other week. We have different segments like a Would You Rather segment. We have a crazy news stories segment. We have a sports segment. We have a little bit of everything. Like we talk about everything under the sun, realistically. We have like a recommendations, like a movie recommendations segment every time too. That comes up every once in a while. It's a little bit of everything, and it's a great dynamic. If you realistically, I feel like I'm funny. I feel like if you guys enjoy listening to me, you'll enjoy listening to me and my co-host twice as much because we riff off each other. It's way better. It's way funnier. I'm not trying to put myself down here, but it's a better. There's a lot more thought behind it, so I feel like it's a better product. And we have new merch for this other podcast too. I have merch for this podcast too. I'll probably make new shirts soon. I'm guessing within the next 6 months, I'll probably make shirts for this podcast as well. But that being said, we have shirts coming out, so you have to tune in Thursday at 9:30 p.m. to see those new shirts. You'll be able to see me and my co-hosts, and we'll talk about we're going to be in a golf tournament coming up. That'll be fun. We'll talk about that a little bit. I want to say the state that we're going to cover is Delaware for Crazy Laws. Connecticut or Delaware is where we're at with Crazy Laws. So we're going to be doing that. And we'll review some beers along the way too. 3 or 4 beers, something like that, depending on what we're doing. We'll crack into some beers and review some beers. So I have been the Horny Gnome. This has been the Horny Gnome Booze Cruise podcast, episode 10. And I appreciate you guys for staying in here and hanging out with me. I know over on Twitch and Twitter and YouTube and Facebook, I had a little bit of audio issues earlier. I'm glad I got through those. For everybody that's hung out on TikTok, I love you guys. TikTok was my first love as far as this stuff is concerned. I love going live on TikTok. It's been something that I've really enjoyed, and I only do it for podcasts now, and I think I'm going to try to open that up and go live on TikTok a little bit more. Maybe some in-between stuff. Just to go live on TikTok and talk to everybody. Because I've been putting out a lot less content. I need to stay on top of that. Other than that, if you guys like what's going on here, I would love some feedback. So you can reach me at hornygnomebar@gmail.com. If you want to comment, you can hop in on any of these videos and watch them on Twitch, YouTube. Leave a comment, subscribe to my YouTube. That would be amazing and would go leaps and bounds as to me continuing to do this and grow it and whatever. I do plan on having guests. I'm going to split. I have like a guest list right now of people that have been wanting to either get on my podcast or my other podcast. So I have a list. I'm probably going to split that up. I'm probably going to do some guests on here and some guests on the other podcast. It just depends on what I want to do there. But, I love doing this. I love doing this podcast. I love talking to you guys. I love you guys feeding back stuff live. I'm a big fan of that. It's really been amazing. And I appreciate all the support that I've had so far and everybody that's followed me and subscribed to the YouTube, which is Horny Gnome. What's the YouTube? Horny Gnome Bar? I think it's Horny. No, the YouTube is Horny Gnome Booze Cruise. Sorry. So if you haven't checked out any of our past episodes, you can go do that at Horny Gnome Booze Cruise on YouTube. And it's Horny Gnome Bar. No. Yeah. Horny Gnome Bar on Twitch. Horny Gnome Bar on TikTok. If you do not follow me on TikTok, there's way more content on TikTok. It is HZRNEE Gnome Bar, all one word, over on TikTok. I know it's harder. TikTok doesn't like the word horny. It's a pain in the ass. But other than that, it is what it is. Woosatail hopping in here. What's up? How are you? Um, but it's been great. I appreciate everybody sticking around. We got a couple viewers over on YouTube or over on Twitch maybe, and then a couple over on TikTok. I appreciate you guys for sticking around through all of my technical difficulties and rambling on and everything. Cheers. Remember, beer makes you awesome. God, that's such a tasty beer. I love this tropical IPA, by the way. Beer makes you awesome. I have been the Horny Gnome. This has been the Horny Gnome Booze Cruise podcast. And I appreciate everybody hanging in here. I will talk to you later. Peace.